Speaking of another S movie, we went to go see Superman. So this is the new James Gunn Superman movie, and I liked it. I thought it was very good. It's a really different Superman story from what I think most people are used to, at least used to recently. I think it probably takes certain elements from Smallville. I'm just not familiar. I've just never watched Smallville, because this is a coming of age movie with a 30-year-old guy as the main character. And I enjoyed that a lot. I was not really following this beforehand. I'm not a huge Superman fan. I like Superman well enough. I think I much prefer good guy Superman to evil Superman, partially because we've been so inundated. The problem is that we've had new evil Superman stuff, but also there's also now adaptations of old Superman stuff, but it's getting adapted for the first time, like Invincible or The Boys. So it's all just kind of snowballing, and getting a version of Superman where he's just a really good guy, and not in a cartoony way, not in a flat way, in a very believable sense that this is a person that you believe could exist, and almost someone you want to exist. This version of Superman seems like he would be a great friend, and I think that's a really big compliment to give to a Superman incarnation. The premise of the movie is that it just skips the origin story. It skips the origin story. It does not bother with it. It assumes that you know the gist of Superman. He's an alien from another planet, raised in Kansas. He's Clark Kent. He lives in Metropolis, and he's a newspaper reporter by day. Superhero by also sometimes day, but you know. And you kind of know what superheroes are. They call them metahumans in DC, which is just sort of a catch-all, just kind of super people. So you get a quick opening crawl, or just quick bullet points in text of metahumans have been around for about 300 years. Superman has been around for about 3 years publicly. And 3 months ago, I believe, Superman intervened to stop one country from invading another. And now, I think 3 minutes ago, Superman was confronted by a metahuman from the country that he stopped the invasion of, or the country that was going to. The country it's called Barovia. They were going to invade Anjanapur, something like that. He stopped Barovia. Now a Barovian metahuman has come to confront him. You're not seeing that. You just see him crash into the snow into the Arctic. Bloodied up and fucked up and tired. And that immediately establishes something that I like a lot about this movie, which is that this is an extremely human version of Superman. It might be one of the most human screen adaptations of him. Live action at the very least. Definitely compared to the Henry Cavill one. It's such a shame that they wasted Henry Cavill on making him like a mopey edgelord Jesus analog. I know some people like Man of Steel. I just find Superman as a Jesus allegory to be kind of like lame and boring, because he's obviously a Moses allegory. He's a Moses allegory and an immigrant. He was created by the children of Jewish immigrants. And his backstory is that he is from one place, one troubled people, and was sent to another place to live with people who were more, let's say, fortunate and stable, and was raised by them, but feels like he has a foot in two different worlds and has this kind of great responsibility thrust upon him, like Moses does. he is clearly a metaphor for the an allegory for the Moses story, and also probably a metaphor for the experience of being a child of immigrants, who might have also related very much to the Moses story. The Jewish people have a long history of diaspora, and that is the mini rant over. I don't like him as a Jesus parallel. One of the main things that this movie is trying to hammer home is that this feels like a movie that is aimed directly at people who think that Superman is boring. Oh, Superman's like boring. He's just like unstoppable and invincible, and he's always right, and he's so good and all that. And this movie's like, Superman is extremely human, and that's what's compelling about him, is that he has this godlike power, but on the inside, he kind of just feels like a guy. I'd almost wonder, I imagine this has come up at some point, but I almost, like, Superman is someone who could easily have imposter syndrome, you know? He's just a farm boy from Kansas. You know, one thing that I've never seen it done, maybe there's a comic where it's been done. I've never seen it done. I think it would be perfect. And James Gunn should have contacted me before this. Clark Kent never has a Kansas accent. Why? Why does he not have why does he not speak with a Kansan accent or dialogue or a southern drawl at all? I think it would be a great part of the Clark Kent identity, you know, to further distinguish the Superman identity in the Clark Kent one, and to hide that he's the same person. I think it would be a great idea to have Clark Kent speak with a southern accent and Superman to speak with no accent. Right? Like, wouldn't that... I think that would be very clever. I think I was smart for coming up with that, but no one's ever tried it, as far as I know. Superman nerds, let me know in the comments if anyone's ever tried that. That sounds like a fun idea. He's just a farm boy from Kansas. And he was raised by good people, and he believes in good. I'm going to get into spoilers. So, as I usually do, as I'm oft to do. So, if you're interested in seeing it, I would say that this is a really nice take on Superman. That it's a coming of age story where it has a very positive, I think, uplifting message and tone at the end of the day. And if that sounds appealing and fun to you, then have at it. There's some really fun action scenes. It's not really heavy on action, which I liked. There's 2, 3, 4, there's about 5 action scenes that are notable throughout the film. One of which is kind of like this big extended, maybe 2 of those you could wrap into like an extended climax or the thing for the climax. The movie does not end in a fight scene. It's a superhero movie where the conflict is not resolved through a fight scene. Which is nice. Also, James Gunn does his usual thing of bringing out a bunch of freaks and weirdos, which he loves doing. And I enjoyed that part of the movie a lot. It was just... Was there anything I disliked about the film? Honestly, not really. Other people have had gripes with the movie. This is a movie I would place pretty firmly in. I liked it a lot. It didn't have anything that put it over the top to make this like, wow, I really love this. You know, it didn't have like a particular super personal way that it clicked with me on, but I really enjoyed it. I liked the message and the tone. The acting is great. I thought the jokes were funny. Some people get a little like, oh, did James Gunn, does he do the Gunn thing where he kind of undercuts a serious tone with a joke? I don't think he does that. There is humor. There are some serious scenes that have jokes in them, but it's more like a character's making a joke and not, haha, audience laugh now. You might laugh at it, but it feels very honest to the character who's making it, where they will say something that is during the more heartfelt moments or a sad moment or something like that. they'll say something that feels, if there is a joke, it usually feels in character, like something that they're saying because that's something they would say in this situation. It's not like, some big death scene has just happened and then a character goes, wow, isn't that? So who gets his shoes? Who gets the Jordans? That's not happening in this movie. I watched the Jeremy Johns review of this film, and he thought that happened a lot. And I just feel like we watched different movies. I don't know. I did not feel any significant problem with the tone in the film. It felt relatively like one of the more well-balanced James Gunn movies, like maybe one of the later Guardians films. It definitely does not go as hard as The Suicide Squad, but I'm fine with that because this is a Superman movie, and that feels appropriate for the tone. Anyway, that's kind of my recommendation, non-spoiler recommendation. So I want to get into like what I really liked about the film. So I think one of the most controversial things with a lot of people with this film is it's actually not the Israel allegory. There is a lot of people, before I went in, I heard like, this is the most anti-Israel superhero movie that's ever been made. And I went, what the fuck? And after watching it, yeah, it probably is. But it's also handled in such a way where in 20 years, it could easily be seen as an allegory. It could be read as something else. It is detached enough. It's not like this is literally what's happening right now. That was probably what he had in mind while writing it. And it is probably what a current audience will think of it. But it could easily have been, if this was in the 70s, it could have been the Vietnam War. If this was in the 2000s, it could have been Afghanistan or Iraq. Again, in 20 years, it could easily be an allegory for something else. The main hook is, or the reason it's there is because what's important is that one country was invading another country and Superman stopped it because people were going to die. And this kind of informs the conflict of the movie, which is the coming of age aspect arises from the fact that Superman, Clark Kent, has this very pure but kind of naive sense of good and justice that he acts on. He feels a responsibility to act on it. But he's living in a world that is, air quotes, complicated. It's not complicated to him. That's what's important. It's not complicated to him. But to the world, everyone's like, oh, but there's this and that. And he's like, I don't care. People were going to die. And it's a line of logic that you literally cannot argue with. It is this like immovable wall that Lois Lane is arguing with him about whether or not he should have done that. And if at a certain point, she's like, okay, fine, whatever. To the point where he's almost childish about it. So he's living in this world that is more complicated than he is. So one, how does he reconcile his innate sense of justice and good with a world that can be mean and cruel and unfair and corrupt and really fucked up? The other aspect in which this ties into as part of the coming of age thing is, what is his identity? The most controversial thing that I think actually happens in this film is the reveal that Superman's birth parents, Jor-El and Lan? What, I don't know Supermom's name. Lara? Whatever. That they sent him there with a message. He goes to the Fortress of Solitude. He's listening to the message from his parents because it serves as sort of his foundational philosophical rock. And they're like, we love you. We're sending you to this place called Earth. We need you to, be a steward for these people and be a symbol of strength and justice and whatever. And that's what he takes to heart, and that's what he's been living his we don't know like when he discovered this message or anything, but for his at least his time as Superman, he's probably been using this as his guiding light. Lex Luthor breaks into the Fortress of Solitude, hacks the computer, and decrypts the full message because it was damaged. It was damaged when he crash landed on Earth, and it cut off at the halfway point. So Lex Luthor finds the second half, and he's like, oh ho ho. I fucking love Lex Luthor in this movie. He's great. I'll talk about that in a second. And the full message is also, you need to take that place over, dude. You need to conquer and have many wives. They say take many wives and repopulate the Kryptonians. And it's like, whoa. Okay. So the whole world turns on Superman in a way which is, I call it the hashtag Gunn rushed. Kind of the same way that he does it in Guardians 1. Certain elements are kind of rushed. I'm ultimately okay with it because the movie doesn't fall apart. I was a little more annoyed with it in Guardians because it kind of hinged, a lot of the emotion kind of hinged on them caring about each other, and that felt very rushed to me. Their actual relationship building, I didn't really feel like I saw that happen. In this movie, it's different. It's more like everyone in the world watches the news every second of the day, and everyone also changes their opinions immediately based on what's in the news. So I guess that there's never been like a Watergate or 9/11 or anything kind of like that in this world, at least not in America, because everyone just blindly trusts mainstream media all the time, every time. So people see, because it also goes in the opposite direction when everyone likes Superman again. Like they find out that Lex Luthor's a hack fraud and he like started the Barovian military conflict, and they're like, literally within 10 seconds, someone's on the news going, I guess Superman's a good guy after all. And I was like, again, a little hashtag Gunn rush. But it's fine. It's whatever. It's a little goofy. It's one of those things where I can see it on an outline making sense, and then this happens. People turn against Superman. And then he gets to it in the script and he goes, oh, but what does that look like? That's a surprisingly very common thing in writing. I would know that happened a lot. That happens to me. I was like, but what does it actually look like when I write it? James Gunn's solution is it just kind of happens. Fuck it. So Superman himself is just thrown into an absolute tizzy. He doesn't know who he is, this kind of core foundational part of himself, his purpose. Like, yes, he was raised by Ma and Pa Kent, but he was sent there in the first place by his parents who gave him this message, and obviously that would be important to him. The reason he's even alive. That has to be some kind, and he's someone who pretty clearly believes in responsibility. This hits home for him a lot. So to learn that his parents' message was in actuality some kind of perverse, sort of evil sentiment it pulls the rug out from under him, and he spends a lot of the middle portion of the movie just in a daze of not understanding who he is or why he's there or what he's doing. He's just, and this is the human part of him. He is constantly losing fights. Lex Luthor has this metahuman guy called Ultraman, which I had to look up. Yes, is a character from the comics, but I only associate the name with obviously the Japanese Ultraman, but that is a character that is an evil Superman version from the comics. And Lex has this this Ultraman who is like as strong as Superman, and he's got every single move pre-programmed, and he like feeds them in to Ultraman's ear as Lex is watching the fight, and he's just wiping the floor with Superman. He just cannot do fucking anything. Superman struggles a lot. He's clearly very strong. I think that the difference between how his strength is depicted here versus in Man of Steel or the Snyder movies is kind of interesting. He feels a little more low powered here. Obviously, he is superhumanly strong and he can fly and he's very fast and he has all the powers and stuff and the ice, the super breath and the heat vision. But he's not as like insanely cracked feeling as in the Snyderverse. Like there's a scene where a giant monster is attacking Metropolis, and like he's kind of struggling to hold the foot up, you know? Like I feel like Snyder Superman would just be like whoop and just hold him up, to just pick him up. But he's struggling a little bit. There's clearly a limit to his strength. One of the other nice things about that fight scene is, speaking of Snyderverse, how much this movie feels like a direct response to Zack Snyder's depiction of Superman. Everyone remembers the scenes from Man of Steel where Superman and Zod are fucking obliterating. They're doing 9/12 on Metropolis. And that's just how the movie ends. And then Superman fucking snaps Zod's neck. It's like, oh, Jesus. Superman, everybody. This version of Superman could not be any more different. There's a great scene where he's fighting off this monster, and he takes so much care to make sure that no one gets hurt, including the monster. He kind of punches it. He knows about how hard he can punch it, without like he's not trying to kill it. He intentionally is like working with the Justice Gang, which is Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific in this movie. And he is specifically like, I'm trying not to kill it. I want to see if we can maybe sedate it and put it in some kind of a shelter or something like that. Like that's his immediate reaction is I don't want to hurt it too badly. I just want it to not hurt people. It's just an animal. It's not evil, right? There's a moment where it opens its mouth and it breathes fire, and Superman kind of shields. There's a building behind him. He kind of tries to shield it as much as he can. He looks behind him, and there's all the windows are just smoldering, and he looks inside and he checks, hey, is everyone okay? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, okay, good. And then his immediate next move is to get the monster's attention and fly up into the air above it, so that when it breathes fire again, it breathes into the sky and doesn't risk hurting people. There's a moment where he literally stops to save a squirrel. Like a squirrel. And some people might consider that a comedy beat, but I think that's completely honest. I don't think that that's meant to make Superman look silly. I think it's meant to drive home how much he cares about life. He just doesn't want anyone to get hurt. He knows that he has the power. Like Superman believes that no matter what, he can make sure that everyone gets out okay. And he is going to do his damnedest to make sure that happens. And it's like this really, he has such a strong heart. He has such a strong heart. This version of him is so likable in that way. Later on, eventually, so one of those, the answer to how does Superman exist, right? And who is he? What is his identity in this world? Is that he is defined by the choices that he makes, not what anyone else tells him. Because you have all of these, there's this aspect through the movie of Superman through other people's eyes. How do different governments see him? There's these boardroom meetings of how does Lex Luthor see him? Oh my god, Lex Luthor. How does Lex Luthor see him? How does all the mainstream media see him? How does the news report on him? What does the public think of him? What does Lois Lane think of him? What does he think of himself? And he's totally lost. Eventually he goes back home and talks to his parents, and he and his dad have a nice heart-to-heart, and his dad says that ultimately, like, it doesn't matter what anyone else says or what your parent, none of that matters. Who his birth parents say he should be, right? What matters is what you choose to do. If you choose to be a good person and to help people, that's the only thing that defines you. It doesn't matter what you think. What do you think of yourself? If you make the decision to be a good person, you will be a good person, Clark. And that kind of gives him the strength to go back and finish things. And this culminates in the big climactic fight scene. So a lot of people were upset about. Not a lot of people were upset. People thought that it was a missed opportunity to use. There's a reveal that the Ultraman character is an actual literal clone of Superman. He is a clone that Lex made from Superman's DNA, and has like trained in this way. So I actually, thinking on it, I actually like the inclusion of the clone, because thematically, what does a clone mean? Well, the clone it's a parallel to him. And I realized that the Ultraman character is Superman. It's like it's Superman's own fears about himself, or his own insecurities about himself. Ultraman is a character who was created to be a tool for conquest, a tool to be used by someone else for their own nefarious gain, right? And he is also completely reliant. He's basically a brainless drone. He is completely reliant on direct instruction from other people, from Lex Luthor. So how does Superman how does Superman beat the clone? Ultraman has these camera drones flying around him. Superman gets Krypto, which this is another thing, is that one of the other running motifs throughout the film is that doing the right thing and helping people is always the right thing to do, that it pays off. Superman spends a lot of the conflict in the movie is just Superman is trying to get his dog back. He's just trying to get Krypto back after he gets kidnapped. And Superman goes through a lot of hardship to protect the people that he loves, including his dog. But ultimately, Krypto comes back, he destroys the cameras, and then when Ultraman has no one, they can't see the footage, they can't see the live feed of the fight, Lex can't give him directions, Ultraman suddenly doesn't have anyone to tell him what to do or who to be, and then he basically falls apart. And Superman, who's able to actually act on his own and act from a foundation, he has an actual self-centered core, is able to stand up to him and fight him, despite the fact that physically Ultraman is stronger. He is stronger than Superman, but he doesn't have that core identity. And that's why thematically that's in there. Superman defeating Ultraman is representative of him. Basically, the fact that Superman can stick to his guns, and that he has those pun not intended, and that he has those guns to stick to is what makes him, that's like, to be a little cheesy about it, one of his superpowers. It's actually his heart. It's his humanity. That's literally what he says to Lex Luthor. I want to talk about Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor in this movie is delightful. I really enjoyed Nicholas Hoult playing both. So both characters, Superman and Lex Luthor, are meant to be kind of younger versions of themselves. Superman is maybe 30. Lex Luthor is also maybe a youngish guy. He's kind of a young face in this. And oh my God, he's a little shit. He's such a little shit, and he's such a little Mulder. He's history's number one Mulder. He is the pettiest, most spiteful guy ever. He hates Superman. And the reason that he hates Superman is I think this is a very classic Lex Luthor thing. He's jealous. He's jealous of Superman. Maybe it might be more fair to say that he despises what he thinks Superman stands for. My understanding of Lex Luthor's character traditionally is that Lex Luthor hates Superman because Superman is an all-powerful, super-powered being, and he's a good guy. And Lex is an extremely powerful person in terms of wealth and intellect and political connections, and he chooses to be evil. But he kind of wants to believe on the inside that power just corrupts, and he's just acting like anyone with power would, and this is just sort of his birthright. Ironically, he thinks that despite being a human, he thinks he's superior to other human beings, versus Superman, who is like not a human and literally, in a literal sense, not human, and literally stronger and better than other people. But Superman considers himself to be just like anyone else. That's their dichotomy. And that drives Lex fucking up the wall. Just insane. Just insane. The idea that someone could have all that power and be a good person. That's like one of his great like he just has to destroy him. That's the only way he can think to respond, is just to smash him. He starts an entire military conflict specifically to have an excuse to kill Superman and sell his tech to the government. Crazy. He has a pocket dimension. They just throw in that Lex Luthor has a pocket dimension which I thought was fun, where he has essentially an extra legal gulag where he keeps political prisoners and ex-girlfriends because he's just evil. And he there's like a 5-second shot where he reveals that he has an entire army of monkeys trained to talk shit about Superman on social media, which is incredible. Sometimes that's how I feel. This is 1% of what being a YouTuber is like. I'm kidding. People are generally pretty nice. I love you guys. Don't take that too seriously. Don't be parasocial about it. Oh my God. It's so great. Superman swears one time in the movie. Like, it's great. He never curses. I think it actually works. I think that there's a little... I would have personally cut back on the language in this movie a little bit if I was writing it, especially because, parents are taking their kids to see it. There's a few too many shits. I don't know. There was a kid in our theater, at least one kid, and I was like, I don't know if I was a parent, I'd be like super down with all the language. Just cut back on it a little bit. But I do get that it further drives home the difference in that Clark just refuses to swear. He is an oh my gosh, gee willikers, darn it guy. Like, what the heck kind of guy. He's sharing epic... What the pupper? That's him, Holy doggo. Am I right? He just is that guy. The only time he swears in the whole movie is when Lois is talking to him about... They do this kind of clever interview where she knows that they've been dating. She knows he's Superman. But she does this interview with him as Superman. And she's talking about the mean hashtags about him online. And he's like, super shit. That's the only time he swears because it gets him so upset. And you know what? I think it's because it's a curse word. I think it's because it's a curse and he doesn't like, I believe it's because he doesn't like the idea that kids who look up to him could see hashtag super shit and start swearing or saying that. Like it's a bad influence. It's wonderful. The more I talk about him in this movie, the more I love Clark. Oh, he's just delightful. Lex is a fantastic foil to him. The whole scene, the whole segment where he steals crypto and Superman comes in pissed. It's like the angriest you've ever seen him when a nice guy gets pissed off. When the rant Sona crosses their arms. Like Superman breaks into Lex's office and flings his table over, and like he's mad and he's kind of throwing a tantrum. And again, he's justified. But Lex is just completely calm and he's like, oh, what dog? I don't know about any dog. And he's like, where is my dog? And Lex is like, he pulls his coffee mug up to his mouth and he goes, oh, ugly little fucking shitty ass dog. And Superman's like, what did you say? Say it again. Say it again. Superman goes through so much pain to save his dog. Oh my god, the stuff with the whole deal with Mineral Man. I liked that. James Gunn is really good at bringing in weirdos. James Gunn is kind of like the film version of the tried and true I'll call it the tradition of writers taking obscure comic characters, and because no one in editorial cares what you do with them, you can just do whatever the fuck you want. Like, do you guys care if I write a weird, super surreal fourth wall breaking story with Animal Man? Go ahead, Grant Morrison. That is Grant Morrison, right? I'm not like... I'm not, Yes! I'm so right. Because the thing is, I always mix up Grant Morrison and Alan Moore. It's just one of those things, like, okay. Am I the only one who confuses Helen Keller and Anne Frank? I'm not the only one who does that, right? It's like Grant Moore, Alan... I'm going to move on, but like, right? Come on, right? Okay. Anyway. What was I saying? Yeah. James Gunn is kind of the film version of that, where he likes taking obscure weirdo characters like Mineral Man. Is that the same guy as Animal Mineral Vegetable Man? I'm not sure. Because I know that's a guy. And writing him as a very touching, likable character. He's got a son, and he cares about his son. And the scene where he makes the artificial sun with the chemicals to heal Superman because he gets so upset. Oh my god, that whole Russian roulette scene is crazy when Lex Luthor, he puts a bullet in, and he's interrogating this guy that Superman like gave Superman a hot dog one time. He just kidnapped him, and Clark is like, oh, he's just, oh my god, please don't do this. And then the bullet fires on like the second shot, and Lex is surprised, and he goes like, oh, the second shot, which was a fun subversion. I say fun. It was a good subversion for dramatic tension. And it's so tragic, and you feel so fucking bad. And then again, just so much hardship gone through to save his dog. But ultimately, like, what comes of that? Mineral Man helps Superman escape. They save Mineral Man's son. They break out a bunch of people, and this ultimately like leads into this cascading. He gets Crypto back, and Crypto helps him beat Ultraman, and that helps him confront Lex at the end. And it's these cascading, the buildup of making the right decision and doing the right thing keeps paying off throughout the movie. It all comes back to that, the fact that he acts selflessly. I really like the scene when it's after Crypto has been kidnapped, and Superman goes back to Lois for the last time in what could be a while. He doesn't know what's going to happen. And he tells her that he's going to turn himself in to the government so that he can figure out where Crypto is, because wherever they're going to put him is probably where Lex put Crypto. And Lois is telling him not to do it and think about, oh my god. And she's obviously thinking about him and pleading with him not to do this. And his reasoning is just crypto is out there and he doesn't know where I am, and he's alone and he's probably scared. And like I've owned dogs before, and like, God, that's heartbreaking, you know? And at that moment, Lois, who earlier in the movie was just kind of fed up with his sort of goody two shoes, childish, you know, the Boy Scout Superman thing, right? There's this really nice moment where she just like, she just kind of sighs, but it's a nice sigh where you realize like, this is why she loves him. There's not a lot of establishment of their relationship together. But to me, I thought that little moment was all that I needed to know this is why she loves him. This is what she sees in him, that when he could be putting himself in mortal danger, but he's not even thinking about himself. He is the last thing on his own mind. It's just his beloved dog is out there and he's scared. And the thought just breaks Clark's heart so much that he has to go turn himself in for the chance, the hope of getting his dog back. And she's like, God, speed running the 5 stages of grief when she realizes she's hopelessly attracted to him. That's why she loves him. That's what she sees in him. I like the Justice Gang stuff. They felt like much more characters that James Gunn is much more comfortable writing. He likes writing kind of flawed characters who are a little bit edgy and a little rough around the edges. It was interesting that he took a Superman movie, but I think he really rose to the occasion, and he was good at I think he was really good at writing outside of his comfort zone. I really like how Clark is written in this movie. But the Justice Gang was very fun. I liked them. Their dynamic of being they're like the proto Justice League. You can totally see what's going on, where it makes sense that they're contracted, but they're privately contracted, and that makes sense. It makes sense that there would be, if metahumans have been around for 300 years, that there would be some kind of organization or trying to use them for military purposes. I can definitely believe that they're rare enough that it's hard for the military to really make consistent use of them or even find them. But their place in the world, this feels like still like a young world. I was kind of thinking about it. The part of the earnestness that I really enjoyed in this movie is that they didn't do, with one exception, which is related to the Justice Gang, they didn't do the thing where like, well, your name's this, that's a little silly. The one exception being, I guess, Justice Gang, but that makes sense because I can see why someone would not like that name. And also Mr. Terrific in the Justice Gang, which, to be fair, is a really silly name. He's great in this movie. I haven't even mentioned him. There's so much stuff in this movie. He's a really enjoyable. He's kind of a scene stealer. I had no idea who he was, and I came out of this thinking he's pretty cool. And I believe that people would make fun of Mr. Terrific because, like, okay, think about this. Metahumans have been around in the world for 300 years. They are a little bit older than the United States. So culturally, people are used to the idea that there's going to be a super person every now and again who might show up. And as the internet and social media and mass media becomes more prevalent, you'll hear about them more often. You know, people just get more exposure to them as it's a natural consequence of in the information age. But it's kind of like sports teams where you hear a sports team with a cool name, like, I don't know, the Miami Heat, the Chicago Bulls, and you go, that's a cool name. And then you hear, let's see, dumb sports team names. I'm not a sports guy. Let's see. Uh, the Showboats? The Maulers? Who the fuck? The Maulers. The Browns. They're named after a guy named Brown. Wait. They were founded by a guy named Brown. Their helmets are orange. Their logo is an elf? Hang on. The Browns logo. Why is he I have never seen this. Is this real? Brownie the Cleveland Browns. Brownie the elf? Yeah, like this is something you'd see, and that's like Mr. Terrific. And you'd go, that was the one you went with? Oh, you're going to put a T over your face. You're really leaning into this. Okay. Sure. All right. And it works because he's a really cool character. He's got a great hashtag James Gunn needle drop fight scene moment. That does a lot. I love, dude, that's such a fun fight scene with it reminded me a lot of the scene from the Suicide Squad, which is the fight scene that takes place entirely in a rotating shot around Peacemaker's helmet, and you're just seeing the fight in the reflection. That's a really fun visual. In this, it's Lois Lane is inside of a force field as Mr. Terrific and all of his like drone orbs are flying around. Well, they're flying around. He's on the ground kind of hand to handing it, CQCing against a bunch of guards and mech suit guys as there's a song playing, like an upbeat, whistly, catchy song to contrast this crazy fight scene. And the whole thing is this spinning round and around from inside, like from her perspective as she's looking around. Oh my God. Very fun scene. What else? I guess just like a minor note of I appreciate how much character is stuffed into this movie. There's a shot. Oh, I really like the Jimmy Olsen stuff. I think it's really funny. I really enjoy it. He could have just been Superman's coworker who's a little bit of a nerd. But they give him this gag that I really like, which is that he is like scared of women but hopelessly irresistible to them, and specifically like hot women, like like the skankier the more they love him. Like when he leaves the Daily Planet and there's all these like women of the night on the street corner, and they're like, hey, and they're really into him, and he's like, hi, and he just keeps walking. Like, that's really fun. Fun dynamic. I'm sure Jimmy from Geek Love feels like he's finally been done justice. He feels represented. He wishes that was him. There's a shot when they're evacuating the city near the end, and there's this, all these people are piling into a bus, and there's an old lady shuffling into the bus, and there's just a quick, pan down shot. You just see her shuffling in, and she's holding a little plastic like turtle enclosure, or tortoises, I guess. I don't know, her little turtles, and it's literally a 1 second panning shot. That just goes by, and it's just meant to be like people are evacuating Metropolis. But James Gunn adds this, this lady has a pet tortoise. And it's just this little detail that this is not just a nameless, faceless person. This is a person that has a little pet that they like. Tiny, tiny little things to add a lot of humanity to the movie. And ultimately, Superman, I really like that Superman never tries to fight Lex Luthor. He tries to reason with him by speechifying at him. And granted, it was a little... I do cringe at ham-fisted... a little bit. It felt a little bit like exposition-y of, here is the moral of the movie, Lex. It goes a little hard in that direction. At the same token, I also believe that this version of Superman would do that. he would deliver that speech to Lex Luthor. Luthor also has a good one about how Galileo and Galileo and someone else are Da Vinci are like fucking suck his balls compared to him. And you know that he's like, they were great, but I'm the real deal. And you know that he's just been preparing these speeches in his head for so long. I enjoy the fact that he gives commands to Ultraman via fighting game move notation. I like that the first move that he ever programmed for Ultraman 1A is just punching Superman in the face. And I like that when Superman gives that speech to him at the end, and he basically is pleading with him, like, Lex, I am just as human as anyone else, and you are too. He's appealing to Lex Luthor's own humanity, which Lex believes he's kind of above. And Lex just doesn't give a fuck. Lex just does not care. But what matters is that Superman tried. And what puts him out of commission is Krypto just jumping on him and just fucking ripping him up and spitting him around. That's really funny. That was genuinely kind of funny. And I like that you had the fight scene with Superman and the Engineer and Ultraman, and then the movie doesn't end on a fight scene. It ends on a dialogue scene. Superman tries to get through to Luthor. Luthor does not change. He's not like, whoa, you're actually so right. But Superman, finally, him giving that speech is also kind of coming right off of Ultraman, now putting into literal words the lesson that he's learned. I'm a human being. That's my greatest strength, is that I try to do the best that I can every day. And that's what defines me as Superman. Lex, that doesn't have to get through to Lex. It just has to be that there's a clash between them. And then everything's resolved at the end of the day, and everything's cool. And you get played out on a nice song and a sequence of Superman seeing videos of his Ma and Pa Kent instead of his Kryptonian parents. And that's a really nice scene. That was very heartwarming to end on, about like choosing what defines you. I get to choose what defines me. And taking that into my own hands. And everything's just cool. And I said, yeah, I like that a lot. I liked it walking out of the theater, and the more that I think about it, the more I like it. Which is kind of one of my litmus tests. How do I feel about it immediately? And then the more I think on it, do I like it more or less? Some things I think on and I like them less. Some things punish you for thinking about them. This one was a good one. I enjoyed this quite a bit. Granted, I am not a Superman aficionado in the sense that I haven't read a bunch of Superman. I haven't watched a bunch of Superman stuff. I have a general understanding of the character, and there are things that I like about the character. It's sort of in my head. There's a version of the character in my head. But I liked this, and I am pleasantly looking forward to the future James Gunn DC movies. I think especially when I imagine he's going to get more into his comfort zone and start, hopefully, writing his more oddball, out there characters, and maybe hand off these movies towards, I don't know, maybe other directors would be fun. I think they wanted him to do this movie because he is helming this new venture of theirs, but pretty successful start. And I think a very nice complement / contrast to the Marvel movies. If the DC movies kind of follow, I like how I like his strategy that he's been talking about or his mindset of, yeah, we can just be kind of loose and casual, and they're making like a Clayface movie before a fucking Batman movie. And he's cool with the Robert Pattinson Batman movies coming out. And it's not like, oh, we have to brand synergy everything. It's just, no, people can accept that there's just Batman movies coming out, and there's a Superman movie coming out. And there might be a different take on Batman sometime soon. And it's like, comic readers got used to that, hey, there's just going to be a Batman graphic novel that comes out. It's going to kind of be its own thing. Just read it as a Batman story. Audiences are a lot more comfortable with that now. And we can do that. We can have a cool, fun variety of takes. Hopefully also a lot of visual variety, because one of the things Marvel movies have been criticized for is that they are intentionally shot and directed in very similar ways. Sometimes you do get like a James Gunn Guardians of the Galaxy where he has more of a more obvious visual flair and a more obvious dialogue style. He did also with the music that was very influential at the time. But generally, Marvel movies are kind of meant to visually match each other for cohesion, and that has its ups and downs. But I kind of like the DC. To me, is a company that has these classic marquee characters and then just a bunch of fucking weirdos, just a bunch of oddballs. And I think that would be kind of a fun identity for a film franchise to have. You're going to get a good Superman movie and a good Batman movie. And are they doing another Wonder Woman? Someone's got to make a good Wonder Woman movie one of these days. Someone's got to make a good Wonder Woman movie with my... They're not getting Gal Gadot back after this one, after that fucking Israel-Palestine shit. Not my favorite Zionist. But yeah, Superman. This was a good one.